Alright, hi, my name's Nick Spone. We're in Davenport, Iowa. I'm working on my Ron Paul Caucus speech right now. It's 5 minutes of what I think are the most important points and what people in my neighborhood are going to care about and why they're going to want to see Ron Paul get elected. So I played on a little history here and I kind of talk about the reason why our founding fathers wrote the Constitution to control our government and what makes Ron Paul the only viable person to do that. In July of 1788, a group of revolutionaries created one of the most historically significant documents on the limits of government. Our founders wrote the Constitution with a supreme understanding of economics, history, philosophy, and liberty. They knew the threat of tyranny was always present. In order to prevent the citizens of this nation from suffering the fate of countless preceding civilizations, they gave us a comprehensive guideline to ensure indefinite prosperity and liberty, if we could follow it. Here we are over 200 years later, ignoring almost every warning that was bestowed upon us. Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one way out. The Founding Fathers warned us about the dangers of the federal banking system. The unconstitutional Federal Reserve is an independent bank that answers to no one. They tamper with the money supply, creating inflation and deflation, booms and busts. Their priority is making private profit and crony capitalism, not promoting the common good of the country. Thomas Jefferson said that banks are more dangerous than standing armies, and surely Ron Paul would agree with him. Ron Paul has fought the Federal Reserve for over 30 years, and mostly alone. He is the only candidate that truly understands how important it is to have a sound monetary system. He is also the lone advocate of competing currencies, which include gold. Former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan said of the gold standard, "In absence of the gold standard, there is no way to protect savings from confiscation through inflation. Deficit spending is simply a scheme for the confiscation of wealth. Gold stands in the way of this insidious process." Ron Paul is the only candidate that warned about the crash of the real estate bubble, because he is the only candidate that understands the unintended consequences of government meddling. This incident is not a failure of the free markets, but surely it is a consequence of legislative intervention by both parties, with some candidates personally receiving heavy profits. Because he knows the root of the problem, he understands the solution is to allow for failures and cleansing of malinvestment, lest we end up like Japan, propping up zombie institutions and coming into their third lost decade. He has also predicted a currency crisis, which can still be stopped if we hurry. James Madison said, "There are only two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword, and the other is by debt." Yet we are the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, with no signs of slowing down. Ron Paul is the only one who has offered a real solution, making $1 trillion in cuts in the first year and completely balancing the budget within 3. Ron Paul is the only candidate that knows how to make America safe again. He is the only candidate that understands the concept of blowback or retaliation that results from our constant invasions, sanctions, and bombing of sovereign nations. If China invaded our land and overthrew our government, we would surely fight back any way we know how. Have we not learned the dangers of overexpansion from the Romans, the Ottomans, the Mongols under Genghis Khan, the French under Napoleon, and more recently the Great British Empire? Obviously not, because we are in a state of perpetual war with over 700 bases in 130 countries, costing us American lives and trillions of dollars. Ron Paul stands alone on his view of war. If war is necessary, Congress declares it, we fight, we win, we come home, period. We did not listen to Ron Paul when he warned that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, and here we sit bogged down almost 10 years later. Will we make the same mistakes in Iran? Dr. Paul wants to eliminate all foreign aid because he understands that this philanthropy only takes money from poor people in rich countries and gives it to rich people in poor countries. Ron Paul is the only one to challenge the federal war on drugs. This war has had the same impact as prohibition, promoting gang violence and cartel violence. The land of the free has the largest prison population in the world, costing us $60 billion every year, and mostly for nonviolent crimes. Ron Paul wants to worry less about defending the border between Iraq and Pakistan, and more about defending our own borders. Have we gotten so used to big government taxation that we do not question income tax, sales tax, property tax, gasoline tax, inheritance tax, capital gains and dividend tax, sin tax, Medicaid, and Social Security tax? Today, our founders wouldn't throw tea into the harbor, they would throw our whole Congress into the harbor. These ideas may seem radical when compared to the agenda of the other candidates, but these are radical times. If history has taught us anything, it is that people don't learn from history and that this time is never different. So who is Ron Paul? He's a 12-term congressman. He's a doctor who's delivered over 4,000 babies. Ron Paul is an Air Force veteran who served in Vietnam. He's an economist of the Austrian school who predicted the crash of the real estate bubble. Dr. Paul is a strict constitutionalist who has never voted for an increase in taxes. He hasn't flip-flopped on a single issue in over 30 years. He is pro-life and supports the Second Amendment. He votes on principle because he doesn't take money from lobbyists and special interests and gets more donation from members of the military than all the other candidates and the president combined. We hear that Ron Paul is unelectable. The great thing about tonight in Iowa is that we get to send a message to the rest of the country. We have the power to make Ron Paul electable. Thomas Jefferson said, "Every generation needs a new revolution." This is our Ron Paul revolution.